everyone who's joining us as we get started. Started a little bit earlier this morning because we've got lots to get through. So I'm going to wait till kind of 9:01 and then we will kick off. Which is going to feel like a very long 2 minutes as we just watch names populate in this list. Like, come on, yes.
Yeah, very suspenseful. It's all good.
You're joining us, feel free to say hi in the chat. Let us know what the weather's like where you are. In Hackney, it is beautiful blue skies, which makes getting out of bed a lot easier in the morning.
It's terrible weather in Wales, just to add to that. So you're not too jealous of Ali.
Oh no, Alison has rain.
Oh, okay, Alison. There we go. We've got other people from non-England nations. That's great. Representing with bad weather.
Sunny in Darlington feels like a really good album title.
Mm.
Got a couple of people in from Bristol this morning reporting good weather there. Nice to hear. Okay, so please keep introducing yourself in the chat. We are going to get started because we've got 52 weeks worth of email to get through in about 35 minutes. So we've got a lot to cover off this morning. So I will do some basic housekeeping stuff and then hand over to our brilliant panelists for today. So thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking with Beth Mullins from Refuge, our individual giving manager. Thank you so much for joining us, Beth, and for sharing all of your wonderful kind of insider info on the Refuge program. And Jessie Hayes, who's our lovely digital strategy manager, who's been working with Beth over 2021 to kind of work on the email program. So they're going to be talking all through that today. I am the partnership director at Forward Action. I help to bring these webinars together, but I will be turning my video off and handing over to Jessie and Beth shortly. Before I do that, a couple of reminders. So first of all, we have closed captions turned on. So if you need to use those, or if you want to use those and it helps, you can use those. Or if they're distracting, you should be able to turn them off as well. We are recording this session and we will be sending it out on email after this. So hopefully everyone can stick around for the whole thing, because at the end we have time for a Q&A. So it's always a really good chat on our webinars, kind of have 10, 15 minutes at the end to talk through specific questions. If you want to ask a question as we go, use the Q&A function and I will be keeping a note of those. And then at the end of the webinar, I will put my camera on and ask Jessie and Beth any questions that you have. So please do use the Q&A function for that, and feel free to chat in the side with other participants, and also just kind of, if there's any additional kind of chat that you want to add in there. Other than that, I think that's it for me. I will hand over to Jessie. Enjoy, everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ali. Yeah, welcome everyone. Just to run you through what we're kind of going to be discussing today, we're going to start with kind of introducing the email program at Refuge, give you a bit of kind of context. We're going to talk about what email kind of did for Refuge in 2021. We're looking at that kind of year in emails today. We're going to give you some examples of our kind of top performing emails from last year. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of the building blocks for email success as we see them, and also some of the new ideas that we tried last year, before we round off with kind of how we think you can get started, or what the next steps might be. So yeah, that's what we're going to be chatting about today. But firstly, I think a poll is going to come up on your screens. This bit is always very eerie because I sometimes can't see it. Oh, I can. Excellent. Yeah. So how are you feeling about your email program? We'd love to know, how are you feeling about your own email program before we start the webinar today? Are you doing great? Could you be doing more? Are you feeling kind of don't really know where to start, don't really know where to go next? So yeah, if you all vote, and I think Ali is able to see when we can, see the answers.
So we've got about 75% of people have voted already, and 90% of people feel like we could be doing more. So that is great. A couple here are feeling like we don't know where to start. Hopefully we're going to have you covered as well. And for the people who think you're doing great, that is also awesome. Hopefully there's plenty that you can take from this, but also feel free to add anything that you've experienced that's worked well in the chat as well, so that people can learn from that.
Brilliant. Great to know how people are feeling. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Beth to talk a bit about, kind of where we started with Refuge's email program.
Thanks, Jessie. So I joined Refuge in October 2019, and at that point, supporters hadn't received anything for over a year. And that was mainly due to sort of capacity. Our team was much smaller back then, and also the platform we were using, I believe, I didn't see it, but wasn't very intuitive and just looked a big old mess when things got sent. So in November 2019, our email list was originally at about 2,500 people, but the comedian Richard Herring had done sort of like a fundraiser on Twitter for International Women's Day, which happens in March. And part of that, I don't know if anyone on this call knows about it, but Richard Herring would tweet to people who would say like, but when's International Men's Day? And he would say, well, it's blah, blah, 19th of November. With such a large proportion of the list, as you can see on the slide, about like we had 7,000 people to email to coming through from that crowdfunder with Richard Herring, we thought we should really sort of introduce ourselves to our supporters, and also to mention the crowdfunder, which they were involved with. So yeah, this was the first email people received. It acted as a welcome, a thank you, and also we talked about, how much was sort of like fundraised, and the email did really well. We had a 61% open rate, which is absolutely fantastic. So that's sort of where we started. Jessie, if you could go to the next slide, please. So where we are sort of at the end of 2021, so as you can see, we've had a really huge increase in our list size, which is fantastic. And basically when I say list size throughout the sort of presentation, I mean, this is people who've opted into email. And at the minute, people receive sort of emails a minimum once a week. Sometimes it's twice, sometimes it's 3 times. And our list is made up of a mixture of sort of like donors, people who fundraised for us, people who've taken campaigning actions, or people who've just signed up for our sort of emails to find out more. And over time, we've sort of developed this formula which works best for us. And it's mainly so we can sort of get the best performance sort of from our emails that we're sending out. And for that, we do a lot of sort of testing, and we even test like each email that goes out as well. We do a lot of A/B testing. And as you can see, like on the right, like we'll go into this a bit more later. Apologies if you just heard the door go. I'm working from home. As you can see, we've got a really clean sort of look. We have one call to action, and we've really moved away from this sort of like newsletter sort of standard, which is quite prevalent in organizations. And we're going to go through a bit more in the presentation about sort of like how we've managed to get to our perfect formula.
Brilliant. Thank you, Beth. So essentially the kind of in between there from where we started and where we finished kind of 2021, this is the strategy like really boiled down. So we send, as Beth said, regular engaging emails. We aim for 1 per week. I think at the moment you're sending kind of closer to 2. There's a lot going on, lots of important things to ask. And then it's also kind of making sure that the emails we're sending are from real people. So again, you'll see kind of later in the deck, we've got examples of kind of all the different perspectives we tend to use. We see email as kind of an extension of the Refuge brand. It's, it's authentic communication. It's a way to let supporters know what is kind of the most important things that are going on, what are the most important actions they can take. There's only ever one key action in an email, and that can sometimes be difficult, but we stick to that. We don't let people get kind of confused or, have to make a choice and then, decide it's not worth it. We tell them what the most important thing they can do for Refuge right now is, and then we also make it really, really easy for them to take the action. So, all the kind of user journeys that they click through to, we make sure they're as kind of slick as possible. So what did email do for Refuge in 2021? So we're going to go through some of the results now, starting with kind of what we actually did. So in terms of what we delivered, we grew the email list. It started at kind of 60,000 in Jan 2021, so nearly doubled actually by the end of December 21. We sent nearly 6 million emails in total. Obviously, that's every instance of sending them to every person. In total, that was kind of 68 email content pieces, including the Christmas campaign, which obviously higher volume kind of send per week, maybe kind of 2 then as well, and also including any kind of reminder emails and things like that we might do. We also created 14 landing assets. So that was where we identified we want to ask something really important in an email, but we don't have the mechanism to do so. So we're going to create a new, email to target page. Maybe we're going to create a quiz. Maybe we're going to create a poll with a donate ask, something like that. Things to just mix up the kind of way that we're asking for things. We also sent 8 specific regular giving recruitment emails. That was kind of a goal of ours in 2021, was to increase that. Because we only sent 2 in 2020. We knew we really wanted to up that in order to get kind of lifetime income up. And then we also sent 5 rapid response emails. So those, of course, everybody probably knows, emails that we send in response to kind of, breaking news, maybe campaign wins, things like that. So emails on a really fast turnaround. That's really important for kind of engagement and, sharing wins and news with your supporters. Beth, what did we achieve by doing those things?
So yeah, we saw some really fantastic results. So we had £2.58 raised per recipient, which is absolutely fantastic. And we had over 6,500 gifts given, which we can actually attribute to the performance, to the email. So we've done that through tracking links. And of that, 159 supporters we were able to convert to regular givers, which is absolutely fantastic because that's, a higher bar ask for us, trying to get people to give to us monthly. But as you can see, something which is truly fantastic is we had over 43,000 actions taken. So when I say actions, our emails aren't always about donating or, doing sort of a campaign ask. We also have some sort of softer things like polls, we have surveys, different sort of interactive tools for our supporters, to learn a bit more about our work, but also so we can get feedback and get to know them more. So yeah, that was really fantastic. And then on top of that, we had another over 7,000 higher bar actions taken. So for us, a higher bar action would be attending a campaign webinar to learn more about sort of our policy work. And also it would include sort of actually taking an action in a campaigning sort of policy change. So it might be emailing an MP. So yeah, really fantastic results, considering our list was so small in the beginning of in November 2019. So yeah.
Yeah, a brilliant year, definitely. And a lot of that, hopefully the kind of in between that you can see there comes back to that point I mentioned in the kind of strategy, which is we include, it's all based around calls to action that count. We've been able to get, by sending the emails that we did and asking what we did, and we were able to get that impact because every email had a really, really tangible ask that supporters engaged with, and we make that as varied as we can. All the examples kind of on here. And that results in kind of real world change, like a couple of examples that, Beth, you're going to talk through.
Yeah, so for this, so on the left, this is an email we sent out to supporters encouraging them to email their MP. And this was to support the increase in time to report common assault. at the time of sending this email back in June 2021, survivors could only there was only a 6-month period in which you could try and prosecute your perpetrator. And just due to lots of different things, it can be very traumatic. A lot of women we supported were being timed out of justice, which is really wrong. So we sent this email out to supporters, trying to get them to email their MP to let them know this is wrong and the time should be extended to 18 months. On the right-hand side, you can see that in January, we were actually able to tell our supporters, together we've been successful, and we've actually been able to extend the time limit to actually 2 years. So this is a tremendous win for us. And something we always try to do is we always try to update our supporters, whether it's good news or bad news. They've taken the time to do your action. They've taken the time to support the cause. You need to keep them updated with how, stuff is going, how the campaigns are running. So yeah, that's an example of that. With this one, so this is another campaigning email, which had sort of real world impact again. And this is to do with our Threats to Share campaign. So at the time, it was illegal to share intimate images. It was not illegal to threaten to share, intimate images. So with the email on the left, this was sent mid-campaign, and you can see there's like little dots. The above is a topper. So that's basically telling people, have you taken the action yet? So blah, blah, people have taken the action. Here's the original email. And that's something we do quite often mid-campaign to sort of send to supporters who might not have opened the email, and also to send to supporters who might have opened the email and thought, I'll do the action later and haven't yet. And again, you can see on the right, we did an update again, and we said, as you can see, over 44,000 supporters took part, and we were able to again say we've had a fantastic win thanks to our brilliant supporters who emailed their MPs. So yeah, just again, update supporters where possible.
Yeah, brilliant to have such good news to share as well in both those examples. So yeah, those are just some of the examples of kind of the real world impact that, the email program has had, being able to ask that big list to take those really important actions when they matter. But I just wanted to also kind of talk a little bit about the more like holistic or the sort of softer impact of doing email well, which is, email as a means of kind of authentic communication. So I said earlier that email's always been like an extension of Refuge's brand and the cause. It's reaching supporters with the breaking news, the most important things that they can do, the most important action they can take right now in support of the cause. And this is just one piece of feedback from the emails that we often receive that just shows, how important it is for kind of supporters and particularly survivors to be, I guess, kind of like kept in the loop with this and to know that there's this movement behind them. So yeah, just also wanted to bring it back to, I know all the kind of like numbers on the screen. We're very proud of how much money we raise, and also the impact the campaigning actions have had. But there's also this element of it as well, which is that it's just a really lovely way to communicate with supporters if you can get kind of the tone and the content and asks right. So we're going to quickly whiz through some of our top performing emails in 2021, just to give you a little bit more of a kind of flavour of what is in the programme. So I'm going to start with this one. So we've got 3 best performing fundraising emails, and then we'll go on to 3 best performing engagement emails. So this email was sent when the new CEO, Ruth Davison, joined Refuge, and it was written from basically from her. So we thought that could be, really kind of convincing case for setting up a regular gift. We can talk a little bit in this email about what's been achieved in the last few years, and also what is kind of on the horizon, I guess, for Refuge, and why kind of long-term support and sort of sustainable, giving is really, really important. So this email achieved 53p lifetime income per recipient. raised. So that's how we measure it. So that's our lifetime income that we generated from this email divided by the number of people who received the email. So yeah, it's a really, really amazing figure. And yeah, I think that comes down to, this being a really, really strong ask, unusual perspective kind of coming into the inbox. And yeah, really focusing on kind of like the theory of change. Why is your £5 a month so important? What's it going to help Refuge, the Refuge community do together?
So this is another example of a really well sort of performing fundraising email for us that went out in 2021. And this was sent around Mother's Day. Basically, we have a product called Refuge Parcels, and it's an illustrative cost. And behind that, there's the functionality also to send an e-card. So there's the ability to make a donation on the behalf of a loved one and send it as a virtual gift, we call it. So we emailed this out to our supporters to make a donation for their mother or female figure in their life to make a donation to Refuge. This email performed really well. We had 25p per recipient raised. And this email is a little bit different to our sort of standard ones. You can see there's an image there. We don't tend to do images. We keep things quite clean, but we did an A/B test and the image won. We also had an opening statement about, motherhood, which, is very universal to everyone. We have a lot of survivors on our email list as well. So we find when we talk about, mums we've supported, it really sort of hits home with a lot of people who might have used our services or experienced domestic abuse themselves. So this is a really great email, and we repeated this again this year for Mother's Day, and it still performs really well for us. So yeah, that's one of those.
Brilliant. And then the final fundraising email, I'm just going to show you as an example. So this is an email that made up part of our case study appeal that used the story of kind of Innis to illustrate the need for setting up a regular gift. So yeah, essentially this is written from the perspective of a caseworker. So again, different perspective there. And it's made clear in the kind of first sentence that the writer or sender doesn't usually get to kind of talk to supporters in this way. We've got really clear amount prompts, obviously, in the buttons. And we've got also kind of an explanation of the sort of the long-term support that Refuge provides, almost a bit of myth busting. It's not just that first night in the Refuge and kind of providing a safe place for somebody fleeing domestic abuse. It's also kind of all the things that come after that. It's, helping them gain confidence, counseling, legal help, all of those type of things. So we make it really clear kind of what the theory of change is there and why, we need long-term support and we need to meet survivors' long-term needs. And again, this was, really successful email, raised 16p per recipient. And I think we kind of look at this as, we'll talk a little bit more about the whole appeal a bit later, but this was the kind of strongest email, this first one. And I think that different perspective really is kind of a big factor there. And now over to you, Beth, for the first engagement email.
Thanks, Jessie. So something else we do around Mother's Day is we ask supporters to send messages of support to the women in our services. And this is a really sort of lower bar ask, but supporters really love taking this action. And like I said before, we have a lot of survivors on our email list. So it's a great way to engage people who might not be able to be donors. So you can see this did really well. We had a 4.41 action rate, which is fantastic. And it's really important to have sort of lower bar asks in your email list as well as higher bar asks to keep the email list engaged and wanting to keep opening your emails. But there are also ways you can try and get that fundraising ask in. So if we have, for instance, this one, send a message, after people have done that, we have something called a post-action call to action. So there might be a softer ask, could you donate £3 to, cover the costs of blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we don't always go out with, those high bar asks. And yeah, content wise, we talked about a specific area of our work. We're talking about refuges. I think it's sometimes you need to be a bit more specific. I mean, if we just talked about refuges work in a whole, I think you would lose aspects of it because it's just so vast. So we try and sort of pinpoint one service when we're talking about Refuge and supporting our work.
Yeah, it's a really lovely email that I love that it's a bit, behind the scenes glimpse at like a day in a refuge, definitely. So the next one, this is an email that was sent actually, I think at the start, so it would have been the start of 2021. So about kind of the new lockdown and the need to kind of share the Refuge helpline again, and how kind of important it is, and what a sort of tangible impact it can have, even though it's a kind of a lower bar action. So basically, the key parts of this email, I think, are the urgency and the kind of jeopardy is made very clear right at the top of the email. And we also chose here again, I think we tested this one as well with the image, but the post itself appears in the email, just to kind of really illustrate the exact action and what the post will look like before people have even clicked, which is often how we do it. And found that one won that split test. Another 4.41% action rate. I have checked that multiple times because it's very strange that the two top are the same. That's the second one. I think we've got one more. Beth.
Yeah. Sorry. So this one is merchandise. So with this one, we tested a bit of social proof. So that's in context of this email. We were basically saying other supporters have already purchased their Refuge t-shirt to showcase their feminist values and support, our life-saving services. Would you like to purchase one too? Update your summer wardrobe sort of thing. And this did really well. We had a 3.51 action rate. And I think with this one, it's got our formula, bold, got the buttons, it's quite straight to the point. And we've made it really clear, the impact of buying, some merchandise from Refuge, is very clear what happens with that. The proceeds, helps fund our life-saving services. That's probably one of the reasons it performed so well.
Yeah, definitely. Those are some of the kind of top performing emails. What we're now going to go through, what are kind of the building blocks for our success? What are all the things that we kind of do that mean we can get the most out of those emails that we've just showed you. So the first one is consistent list growth. And Beth, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why kind of growing the list was important for Refuge in particular.
Definitely. So as you can see, over the last 2 years, we've grown massively, which is fantastic. And it was and still is a real priority for us in individual giving to continue to grow that email list. And that's mainly because if you have more people on your email list, more people are going to open your emails and more people are going to take action when you need them to, whether it be donating, setting up a fundraiser, or taking part in, a policy campaign. So it's something which continues to be a priority for us. And I think it always will. As you can see, we've had some really lovely gradual increase, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. It means that, when you're asking people those bigger actions, you've got that community who are ready to act, get all the change that you need. And obviously with that big list, we obviously want to make sure that kind of the content that we're sending and the asks that we're sending are diverse. We said before that we're trying to send an email a week, and to make that kind of exciting and engaging, we want to make sure we're asking for a lot of different things from supporters, so they don't get bored, and also so that if any supporters are unable to take particular actions, they can still kind of take action and be involved in the work that Refuge is doing. This is the split from 2021, and as you can see, in terms of the things that we're asking people to do, there's a big variation. Obviously a lot of fundraising, but a lot of other kind of asks as well, engagement, campaigning, all sorts. And if you don't think that maybe you don't have a lot of different asks, or don't kind of have the ability to do that, if you can create them, then, or you can create them if you do have the right kind of systems and flexible templates. So there's a couple of examples on the screen here. The top one is, you know, an email where we've kind of made a quiz about, you know, kind of what happened last year for Refuge. And then, as Beth said, we have often at the end of that, we'll have a soft donate ask. So the email itself doesn't have a donate ask, but there is still the opportunity to give in there. Usually, you know, in this case, after you've answered some questions about, you know, Refuge's work, and, you know, these questions, we base it around how do we prove the need. So, you know, if you've answered a question saying that, you know, the helpline calls to the helpline increased last year, maybe you'll get to that donate ask and go, oh, well, I should probably help kind of sustain that. So yeah, this is just done through Typeform. So really, really easy a system to kind of set something like that up very quickly. We use that for polls, quizzes, things like that. And it's a really nice way for us to then share things with supporters that isn't kind of read more, or, you know, read this report that we've done, or read this blog post. If we can reformat that content into something that's a bit more engaging, and then also, you know, add a donate ask in there, we often find that's, you know, that's much more successful for kind of engaging supporters. And then the bottom example is the ask to send an email to Priti Patel and the ministers about the online safety bill. And again, here we've got they've got kind of a flexible EN template, which we use for campaigning actions. And that means we can set up something like this. That means when people are clicking on this button, they're going straight to kind of the page they need to be on to take action. So yeah, just really important to kind of, if you've got systems that you can use to be flexible, you can then be much more creative with, yeah, sharing things like policy and campaigns updates in the form of surveys and quizzes, or, you know, if you've got an issue you want to engage people on, could you ask them to share messages of support, like with the Mother's Day email Beth spoke about before? Maybe even advice. Could they share advice? You've got lots of people on your list who kind of, you know, are really close to the cause. That might be something to do. The next building block we've got is basically having easily available content. So yeah, Beth, how do the Refuge team get kind of the case studies, donation prompts, stats, all of the stuff that you need to write these kind of meaty emails?
So if I'm honest, originally, like at the beginning, so 2019, 2020, and even into last year, it was a bit of a process that had to evolve. I reckon a lot of people on this call will know it's quite difficult sometimes to get information. So something we did is we sort of repurposed what was available. So for instance, case studies, there might be something which has been used previously, and we might have the consent to use it in an email. So sort of using that. Also, the sort of annual report is really a fantastic resource. There might be stats you could use, there might be quotes, some case studies. And if it's difficult in your cause to get case studies from the sort of service users, you know, something we have sort of explored is actually getting case studies from you know, our staff members. So we've sent out an email from like a helpline volunteer before, and that did really well. And we've previously sent one out from a child support worker. So sometimes that does really well. But over time, what we've been able to do is we've had these discussions internally. People are aware of the importance of email, how frequently they're coming. You know, we have meetings. We have, you know, meetings with different members of teams, policy, and also we now have people in post who can better support us. So we have a senior survivor voices officer who gets case studies and gets the consent we need to use them. We also have a projects and knowledge exec who supports on statistics and information from like operational teams, and she sort of has like a shared bank of information, which not only the individual giving team can use, but other members of the team as well. But yeah, it's taken a while, and I think we're still learning, but we're getting there. It's just a process.
Yeah, it gets more slick every time.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, actually that brings us on to the next building block, which is kind of the system as a whole. So Beth's spoken a little bit there about, kind of getting what we need for the emails, but we've also obviously kind of put in some work to develop a process that we kind of consistently use. So you can see kind of the whole rundown on the right here. So yeah, we plan is the first stage, and that involves the kind of the email team and other kind of stakeholders getting together and basically kind of asking like these questions over here. So the goals, what do we need from email in the period we're talking about, usually a month? What are the asks that maybe we could include to achieve those goals? What are the kind of key asks to get what we need? So, some of the goals might be around, campaigning or a policy thing coming up, and also, income generation. And then we kind of think about the asks that can feed into that. What are the things that supporters can do? And then we also tend to think about kind of moments as well. So, upcoming external moments, so awareness days or anything that might be, kind of in the news as well. And then also like internal moments, so, appeals, launches, things like that might be relevant for supporters. Even if it's not kind of a direct lift, are the ways that we can include that in the content that we're creating. And then, once we've got that plan, we brief the emails, we draft, we have feedback, which is now really, really, really slick as well. We kind of amend, and then we sign off, we build and launch. So the question for you to answer, which is a big one, Beth, is how did you embed this process into your kind of business as usual, especially if you didn't do email before 2019? That's
Yeah. So I think this is something that's, again, really evolved over time. So I think we're making sure that with sort of planning calls with forward action and things like that, the right people are in there. Also that the conversations about sort of like upcoming content and sort of like press work and policy work are sort of being had, and people are going to the right meetings to make sure they're updated. Also, we've had different sort of briefing docs sort of have evolved over time. So at the minute, we have a really lovely supporter care brief. So our supporter care get all the sort of lovely and wonderful and sometimes odd responses we get from emails. So we have this briefing doc with like call to action on it, background information, any FAQs we think that they might need to support them with replying to our supporters. So we have that, and we have that for every email we send out. So they get that before the email goes out. We also have monthly calls with them as well to keep them updated on things that are going out, and also if there's any sort of like concerns which might be raised. And also the manager of supporter care sees the content as well during the sign-off process. When it comes to data, I think the team has grown. So there is more capacity in the team to support us, which is fantastic. And we've also been able to have a really sort of wonderful rolling data brief with the data team with like different segmentation and things like that. And also when it comes to like sign off, Sean, my colleague, he is responsible for getting the email basically to the finish line. So he is responsible for that. I think previously like things were being sent via email, some via Teams. Things can get lost. Who owns it? It's very clear who owns it, and who takes it to the finish line, who updates it, who builds the emails. It's all very clear now. And I think that's something which is really important. People internally know who the emails, the stewardship emails, who's responsible for them. Whereas I think before it was a bit like up in the air and a bit quiet because we weren't sending out as much.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess with the, briefing docs and things like that means you're then not going to those teams for sign off because you're sending them the information they need ahead. So it's like, it's cool. We've got this. Here's what you need to know. Brilliant. Okay, great. So we're into the final few slides now, I think. So we're just going to quickly go through some of the new things that we tried in 2021. So that was kind of the building blocks of being able to do our email program well. But what new ideas and tactics did we try last year? So Beth.
So we really made an effort to sort of diversify our content outside of the actual email copy and the asks. So we were trying to sort of send stuff out from different people. So you can see the top is from Ruth Davison, our CEO. The bottom one is from a survivor. We've also got a caseworker in there. And mainly it helps to sort of refresh, the copy. Can be, no one wants to keep opening the email from the same person over and over again. Come on, like it's going to be boring. And it gives a new voice to our work. It makes it a bit more authentic. And at the end of the day, it's more engaging for a supporter if they receive an email from, like, it says Ruth from Refuge, or like seeing in your inbox you've got like Inez. They don't want to keep receiving an email from Beth every time. It can be quite monotonous.
I know, brilliant. We've got diversifying the kind of perspectives, as Beth said. We also tried a new kind of journey within the kind of campaigns arm, and that was with webinars. So this went to the whole list, but essentially we were asking supporters to join a webinar which kind of explained to them a little bit more about reforming the online safety bill. So the reason we thought this was the right ask here is the online safety bill and kind of reforming it was actually a little bit complicated at the time. So there's a big policy kind of report we could have sent everybody, but instead it felt like a really good time to kind of maybe cultivate a bit of a sort of higher bar campaigner like feel. We asked people if they wanted to sign up for the webinar to kind of get clued up about the bill and the kind of action that they could take, and we had 200 signups, and then I think we had 99, is it? I can't see because people have got the thing in front of my slides, but we had people take the action kind of immediately after that webinar. And then we also followed up with this email on the right here to everyone who hadn't taken the action yet, whether they'd been to the webinar or not, with the kind of actual email, the joint committee. So we're kind of saying we recognize this is maybe a bit complicated, and we also think it's a really good opportunity to kind of bring some supporters into almost like inside the Refuge campaigning team, and kind of get to find out a little bit more. But at the same time, it's something that we want to ask everybody to do anyway. So we did find a way to kind of distill it and make it really, really clear in the email on the right why emailing the joint committee, which sounds a little bit boring, was actually very, very important. That's another thing that we tried.
So for this one, it's basically creating topical like fundraising asks. So this email came out of a conversation I had with a colleague about sort of a lot of women coming into our refuges have experienced financial abuse, so often don't have anything. They often have to relocate to a refuge which might not be, in their hometown. And a lot of women we support have children. Our refuges have a lot of children staying in them. So some children come to us with literally nothing. We were seeing that we were having to buy new school uniforms for these children when they're having to start a new school. So this was sent out, I believe, like the end of August, beginning of September. And it's basically asking our supporters, will you cover the cost of a uniform? We also went, can you go halves with someone else? That's the first time we ever did that. And I think, Jessie, you came up with that idea, which is fantastic. And this email performed really, really well. As you can see, like the average gift, we brought in over £34. But if you look at like the average gift for like cash emails in total, it's normally about £11.94. This one did really well. It's really sort of timely. People were buying school uniforms for their own children at the time. It's very topical, and I think is really tangible as well. This is a favorite email from my side as well because it did so good.
It's definitely one of mine. You're right, it is so tangible. I'll go halves. That was Lauren, so my colleague in the creative team, and I think we got really excited about it, thinking, oh, that's really nice because £44 is quite a higher bar ask when we look at our average gift, and we thought it'd be nice to say you can go halves, sort of community. But we actually now think maybe it pushed more people to buy the whole uniform, because buying half a uniform maybe felt a little little bit stingy or something to people. I don't know. I think we're going to try and test that a little bit more and find out what that wording does. Brilliant. Yeah. And then I think, this is the final example. So we've got the case study appeal, which I mentioned briefly before. And essentially, we wanted to do an email appeal that was different to previous appeals in two ways. One, that it wasn't attached to any kind of topical hook like Christmas or Mother's Day. And two, that it was going to be all regular giving asks. So basically the hook that we used instead of kind of topical time of year or anything like that was a really great case study, which is essentially going through with Ines the start of her kind of experience with Refuge, right to kind of gaining confidence from training, moving on, things like that. So it showed lots of different elements of Refuge's support service offering and made the case for a regular gift in each of those. And this was successful in some sense. We did raise quite a lot of money, which was great considering, you know, as I said, it was a bit of a gamble for us considering it was all regular giving and not kind of a, you know, typical time of year to ask for money like Christmas. But it didn't work in some ways, just in we had kind of different engagement rates and income generated from each of the emails. It was quite difficult for us to make each email stand on its own, but also be part of a whole story. You know, supporters don't open every email, so that was quite a challenge as well. And we also, we have a button on each of our emails consistently at the very bottom, which asks for a £5 donation, whether it's a donate email or not. And we had some kind of issues with that here because we think that some people might have clicked to give £5 cash rather than the kind of main ask of regular giving, and we didn't catch that those two were kind of in a little fight with each other essentially. But yeah, it was a really great thing to test for us and showed us, you know, we can, particularly in terms of increasing how many regular giving asks we make, we can do that standalone. We don't need to rely on sort of a big moment as long as we've got a really, really strong case study. So this is the conclusion now. So we'll whiz through this so that we've got some time for questions. Where would we suggest that you start? So firstly, build your list and be consistent. We've said this a couple of times already, but yeah, we send at least an email a week, we'd recommend, or aim to, and then if you're not, you're still getting there kind of once every 10 days. Obviously make sure all of that is, you know, meaningful content with a call to action each time. We'd also say, you know, be consistent in sending kind of kicker or reminder emails for really important actions or actions that you want to kind of revisit. And as I said, we have a donate footer in every email as well. We have that's kind of consistent in the sort of formatting, the sort of formula that Beth spoke about before with the bold and the buttons being high up and all of that stuff. So yeah, build your list and then be really, really consistent with sending emails to those people. Beth.
Yeah, so and then the other point is make content easily available. So then you can start actually making those wonderful emails that you're going to be sending out. So start having those conversations internally about, you know, requirements, what you need, start getting sort of case studies together. Like often we'll have case studies, like when one comes along, then we might use it. It's sort of, we try and get the case studies first and then see how we can sort of make those work. And let's try and have like a streamlined sign-off process for the emails. That really helps. And basically work with what you've got if you can, you know, repurpose bits you've got lying around essentially if you haven't got it to hand. Because yeah, start getting those emails out and then you can start building those processes and start getting those sort of relationships internally sort of built as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then on that, once you've got your content, as Beth said, kind of work with what you've got. Be creative with your asks. You know, even if you think, oh, we've only got to read more, or we've only got a case study, can we send them to a blog or something on the website? You know, can you repurpose that? Can you make that sending, you know, words of support to beneficiaries or service users? We've done, you know, one email, I think at the start of this year, actually, this one is where we did like a quiz about challenge events. So rather than sending a load of different emails about sort of, you know, very local localized challenge events or sending people to a page. We thought we'll do a quiz and then we'll kind of, you know, to tell them what event they should be doing. And then that also goes for donate asks as well. Can you make them topical? Can you make them tailored? Have you got kind of ones that you can bring out at different points of the year that are really tangible? So yeah, we'd really recommend, you know, being really creative with your asks.
I'll just really quickly touch on this because we've not got a lot of time. But this is sort of our process in a nutshell. And what we try to do is we try to do our emails in batches. So originally at our very beginning, we sort of did like 3-month email, like batches of emails. It just helps with sign off. But now, because we've got so much we're emailing our supporters about, we're doing sort of like monthly batches. But when sort of like we need to do rapid response, of course, we'll do separate emails. But it just, if you have stuff in batches, it's easier to get sign off. Just again, like planning, make sure you've got the right people, make sure the right conversations are being had, brief the right people. And yeah, it's, as you can see, it's a process, but once you've got it streamlined and you know who owns what, you can move quite quickly through it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, and the final one, measure really carefully, basically. Talked a little bit in all the examples about kind of the measures of success that we use. But yeah, I've put kind of some of the maybe usual metrics on the left here and some of the things that we suggest kind of focusing on. So instead of, you know, looking at click rate, if you can for every email and every ask, get an action rate, then really try to. It will really help kind of prove the case of the effectiveness of email and also give you a chance to see what actions people are taking. If you tend to look at, you know, income generated per email or income as kind of a sum, you know, can you look at income per recipient? So that just takes into account that as you grow your list, as Refuge has done, we can actually see, are we still being as kind of as successful with our income generation? And then the last one, you know, kind of income generated per year of email is great. It's usually, you know, a big number. We can say we've got this much. But again, can you quantify that within the kind of the list that you've got? So income generated per subscriber. And do you have a sense of kind of the lifetime value of an email subscriber? If not, could you use data to get that and use that to kind of prove the case for a little bit more buy-in or resource or support on your email program? Yeah, all of those kind of metrics can be really important. So to sum up, grow your list and be consistent, work with the content you've got and be really creative with it, streamline your process and embed it, and then review your key metrics. But Beth, what is your number one tip?
I mean, I think growing the list is really important. I think the conversations need to be had about like budget to try and grow your list, but also just get going with it, start being creative, start getting those emails sort of, yeah, put together and sent out to your supporters, because if they've signed up, they clearly want to hear from you and to hear updates. So yeah, just start get sending.
I love that. Yeah, just start. Brilliant. Okay, that is us. I'm so sorry. I've been a terrible timekeeper, and we are nearly at time. But Ali, if we do have time for questions, I can stay on a little longer.
Yeah, same.
Brilliant. Yes. Thank you so much, Beth and Jessie, and everyone who stuck with us for that. There have been so many questions while you guys have been talking. So we've got 30 questions to get through in 9 minutes. Possibly not going to happen. What we will do is what we normally do. We will write up a blog post that summarizes answers to all of the questions that we get as well. So if we don't get to your question now, don't worry. And please, if you have any more questions, do keep using the Q&A function and we will take that and we'll turn that into a blog post and follow up. I think the biggest question that came up time and time again, which is a huge question, which we could spend the whole 8 minutes talking about, but in brief, how did Refuge grow the email list? So what activities have you done to grow from 7,000 to 120 odd thousand, Beth?
So part of it is during COVID, we had a lot of press around domestic abuse. So that is part of it. A lot of new donors came to us unsolicited. But that being said, we have done significant sort of activity to try and grow our list, and mainly through paid acquisition, so digital. So we have something called a hand raiser. So we are always testing out new framing and, you know, trying to get supporters. Basically, a hand raiser is signing up to sort of like a statement. Like, for instance, one of them I think is 1 in 4 women experience domestic abuse in England. This is wrong. Sign if you agree. And then there's an option once you've signed to actually opt into our email list and hear more. And that has quite a high sort of opt-in. We also are sort of always trying to look to expand that and to sort of try different techniques and different tools to try and acquire new people. And we always have sort of always on paid activity through Facebook as well to try and get new supporters to donate and also to sign hand raisers as well. So yeah, basically over time we've had to prove that this is successful and we get a, you know, return on ad spend and things like that. And over the years we've been able to put more budget behind that sort of activity because the list has grown so much, which is amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I've shared on the chat a link to kind of a bit more information about our work with Refuge and how we've grown the list, but we will share that on email afterwards as well. But yes, hand raisers every time, very successful, really. And Refuge is a brilliant example of proving that ongoing value of an email subscriber. Next big question, which kind of came through from many people, is that they're getting internal pushback on sending such a high volume of emails. So did you come across that, Refuge? And what do you say how would you reassure people that actually an email a week is a great volume to be sending?
So I think we did initially, because in the beginning it was like people hadn't received anything. I think it's just about having those conversations about the value of the email stewardship. If people have signed up to emails, they want to be updated, and people tend to not really like newsletters. I hate to say it. If you have like your, Jessie and I were talking about this yesterday, if you have your subject line as like May newsletter or May update, people aren't gonna open it if you're getting sort of like this sort of new wave of supporter, which, you know, they just want things to be, you know, quick and snappy. They want the email straight to the point. They're checking their email on the train or the tube or something. So it's about sort of, I guess, giving sort of those internal stakeholders who make the decisions the information they need about the importance, and maybe start with a pilot. Maybe start with saying, okay, well, let's do 1 email for a month, so 4 weeks, and then come back with like the results of that, you know, how much income is being raised from that and things like that. But yeah, we find the email list, people are really engaged, and yeah, we love emailing them. they like taking our actions as well. So it's something which, over time, everything involves sending an email out to supporters pretty much.
I think that's been what's been really lovely to see from our side working with Refuge over the past couple of years. Is kind of, it's gone from perhaps being a bit of skepticism to now it's actually something that everyone wants to be involved in, because you've seen the results, not just for fundraising, for campaigns. It's an organization-wide asset. So it's gone from kind of potential skepticism to actually like, this is a really valuable tool for everyone. So the other question on that and the follow-up from that is there pushback, or do you, as the IG manager, kind of how do you monitor to make sure people aren't getting bombarded with fundraising asks? Do you feel like there's a limit to how many asks in a certain time frame, or do you try and balance that?
Good question. So I will push back on some stuff. We have some sort of, I guess you could call them like standards of what we would accept to email our supporters. So for instance, like if we were, I don't know, Sainsbury's were donating like £1 for every like shop or something, we wouldn't email supporters about that, because that's fine just like on a post on like Facebook or in, you know, Insta stories or something like that. And we always try and send an email which has a call to action. So if it's like an update on something, why are we updating them? Is there a call to action? You know, how can they get involved? We don't just want to update them and be like, we've done this and that's it. When it comes to like fundraising asks, yeah, if it's like a fundraising ask, we like back to back, we won't do that. We try and vary it. We try and vary the content. It's quite rare that we send like an email after an email, like as in like each day. But if there's like a rapid response email where we think it's really appropriate, we will do that. But yeah, I think if you look at like clothing brands, some clothing brands will email you every day, and that's a bit much. We try and do it like have a few days break in between each email and make sure it's not the same ask over and over again. And that's why we pretty much schedule and do the sort of like bulk email schedule once a month, so we can actually see what's coming up. So yeah, you're not panicking on Monday morning thinking, what are we sending people this week? You already know what's going out.
Brilliant.
I would add to that as well, just with the financial asks as well. You if you're varying what you're asking for, supporters don't see it as you're asking me. Well, most supporters won't see it as you're asking me for money, kind of, continuously. You've seen it in here. We've got, merch. There's parcels that you can buy, which are maybe more tangible. The different donate asks. Do you want to buy crockery? Do you want to buy someone a night in the refuge? Like that is variation as well as, content and things like that. So that's obviously really important in being able to, ask for donations more often.
Okay, thank you so much. We are at time now. It's been fascinating to hear from you. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Jessie. Got so many questions and lots of people giving nice feedback as well. We will, like I say, be writing these up into a blog post of everything you need to know about sending emails at Refuge, and what we've learned from the past year and where we're going next. And we'll be sharing the recording and the slides as well, so you can have this for your reference. Okay, I hope everyone has left feeling very inspired and has a brilliant day ahead of you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.